manipulate the fears in others, you must first master your own. Are you ready to begin?
Hi, this is Michael Uslan. You're listening to Batman on Film.
Talking about the tales where the shadows crawl. Chapter by chapter, we've covered it all. From the capes and cowls to the darkest night. Every film, every fight, a fan's delight. Turn the page, Gotham's glory awaits. Batman on film, where legends create. Oh, we ride through the Gotham skies. From the bat's rise to the villain's eyes. Turn the reels, where the story is bright. A Batman on film, the legends alive. Break down the madness, scene by scene, where the city's pulse and dark dreams convene. From the old to the new, the saga unfolds. A vigilante sail in the echoing cold. Step into Gotham where justice turns. Through words and whispers, the bat returns. Oh, we ride through the Gotham skies. From the bat's rise to the villain's eyes. Turn the reels where the story is bright. I'm Batman on film, the legends alive. In the shadow of the night, tales untold. Pages turn as the saga unfolds. Join the journey in this timeless quest. Batman on film stands above the rest. Oh, we ride through the Gotham skies. From the bat's rise to the villain's eyes. Turn the reels where the story is bright. I'm Batman on film, the legends alive.
Welcome to Chapter 1 of Batman Begins, a Batman on Film podcast, celebrating the 20th anniversary of Christopher Nolan's game-changing film. I'm senior contributor Javi Trujillo, and joining me today is a cowboy, a king, a dark knight, the plus one of announcer Rachel, Bill Jett Ramey.
That's all true. That's all true.
That is all true.
Hey now. Okay, I don't use that anymore. Let's ride. Oh, wrong.
Let's ride.
Wrong show. But we can ride. Let's go. Let's ride. Batman Begins.
Does this
Batman
podcast
Begins.
come in black?
Yes. It can if you want.
As it is with the, BOF podcasts, I got to ask, how's the weather up there?
Unseasonably cool.
Yeah.
We've had some 90s, a few days of 90s, low 90s. We have yet to have that day where, when you go outside in Texas and it's like, it's effing hot, and you're sweating immediately. Haven't had it yet. I know as soon as I say that, it's going to be 115 next week. So
right. I mean, Thursday we were out and about doing stuff, and I'm like, this is death. And it wasn't even like 100, but I'm just like, this is really uncomfortable. Okay. And then, cut to yesterday, and there's severe storm warnings and hail and 80-mile-an-hour winds. So it's been Texas. That's all I can say. It's been Texas.
Let's just, for those who are unaware, Javi's in Austin. I am in the Dallas area. That's a good 3.5, 4 hour difference. Javi's further south. So it's not like we're right next door. We're not in the same place geographically in Texas, which, it's still talking to Pete, who lives in New Jersey. can drive
Yeah.
to several states within a short amount of time. And here it's like, if you're going to go, like, I'm going to go across Texas, take you
It
a
depends on what direction.
long,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. If you're going from Orange to El Paso is closer to Los Angeles than it is to Orange, Texas, down on the Southeast Texas, Louisiana border. Anyway, I'm not going to get off and nerdy into geography in Texas. But yeah, you can drive across New Jersey in what, half hour?
Probably. I've never been.
Yeah.
But
So
I know if I want to get out of Texas and head west, it's a good 8 hours, double the distance to go see
I
you
am, I
than it would
am,
be to go see
I
you.
will say I am a native Texan. I have never, if you took a magic marker and drew a line just west of Fort Worth to just west of San Antonio to just west of Corpus, I have never been west of that line in Texas. And it's about to change because I'm going to drive to New Mexico in July from
Oh,
here,
wow.
going to Taos.
Is that northern New Mexico?
I, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's in the mountains. That's all I know. Never been to New
All right.
Mexico. Never been to West
Well,
Texas. Never been to the Panhandle. So I'm going to see some parts of Texas I've never seen before.
stay tuned for that on a future BOF social hour
Oh, I will be talking
conversation.
about that. All right. All right.
All right, that's enough witty banner. Let's get into it. The film opens with the WB logo, then a DC Comics one, and then finally bats fill the screen, forming the shape of the Dark Knight trilogy bat. So take me back to the coach of 2005. Did the
Mm,
hairs on the back of your neck go up when you saw that for the first time?
yes. Yep. Yep. I can tell you, I was at what's it called now? Used to the Chinese Theater in Hollywood. It used to
Okay.
be Grauman's. I don't even know what it is now, but you know what I'm talking about. Where
Yeah.
all the cement handprints are. That's where the press screening was. How's that?
Oh, cool.
Probably, oh man, I mean, 20 years ago, almost to the date. It was late May, early June. So yeah, thought it was cool. And really, we had seen the Batman movies with the starting with the logo, before. Well, you have 89, and then, of course, forever,
Returns like broke the tradition.
yeah. Uh, what is it? The Batman Forever morphs into the WB logo to the Bat logo, but this was, just completely different. That music
The
from
Zimmer
Hans Zimmer,
drums. Yeah.
and then it just the bats and it forming that Batman Begins logo. It was cool. And then right into the movie.
Was there any part of you that wishes they would have stuck with like a Schumacher type of intro and have the names fly on the screen like Superman style, like they did for his two
No,
movies?
no, that's very, as I learned, very which you bring that up, it kind of maybe it I don't say it surprises me. It's very Nolan. It's kind of his trademark. He just gets, his movie. Let's go.
Yeah.
Uh, but as much as Superman the movie influenced him and Batman Begins, you bring it up, yeah. He did. That's one thing he didn't. What I want to say,
Homage.
adapt. For this film, it just right into it.
And that DC logo at the start, was that the first time we saw it? Was this movie?
I was thinking of that same thing. It's probably about the same time, right? When
I
they
feel
changed
like it
that
was,
DC.
I
Yeah,
feel like it debuted for this movie,
maybe so. Yeah,
but I didn't get a chance to check go through their catalog and see if it showed up on Catwoman or anything. For
yeah.
one reason, I don't own Catwoman, so that would make it kind of
No,
difficult. I
yeah.
don't know if it's streaming anywhere, and God help us if it is. Um, so, anyways, you were talking about like Chris likes to get to it and get things moving, and
Yeah.
he literally does. as the bats dissipate and the music swells and we see like a young Rachel race across the screen. Like there's a great sense of motion just
Mm-hmm.
from the start. And she's running from a young boy that we learn is Bruce Wayne. They've just found an arrowhead and make a big deal about finders keepers. And they're
Mm-hmm.
just being kids till Bruce suffers a great fall down a hole as he runs from Rachel. And as he lays there hurt, and Nolan creates this ominous vibe of something is about to emerge from the darkness that he sees. And that's something that he repeats throughout the movie. But um, did the Bat fan in you catch that this was an homage to The Man Who Falls?
I don't. It's one of those. I don't want to say a Mandela effect, but it's like I know that it is,
Yeah.
and I can't remember at the time when I was first watching the movie if I thought that in my head, but like today, I want to say I did. So yes and no. Is that good enough? You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
a hard story to track down. I don't think it's
yeah.
on DC Universe Infinite, and I had never read it until the DVD release because I
Hmm.
got some special edition that came with like a mini comic adaptation that
Yeah,
includes that story in it. Um, so we see the bats swarm and seemingly attack Bruce, who screams and wakes up as an adult with longer hair and a beard in a Bhutanese prison. As he goes to get breakfast and gets assaulted by an inmate, asserting his dominance. Uh, what did you think of Bruce Wayne so far? Like, this was not like we had seen him before at all. This was not in a
yeah.
tuxedo like Michael Keaton or,
Well, yeah. I mean, for one thing, we had seen trailers. We'd seen him as this, traveling the world, Bruce Wayne and whatnot. So it wasn't something I like what. And when we see the movie, but also there is, in this movie that he is doing the I'm traveling the world thing, and so it's you
yeah.
expect him to. That's what you expect him to look like, you know.
I think it was a bold choice to not only are we seeing him as a kid, which we've seen before, but to then cut to a version of him that looks unlike what we would think of as Bruce. Like I said, he's really
Yeah.
disheveled, he's covered in dirt, and it's another way of like telling the audience, hey, we're different. This isn't what
Hmm.
you've seen before. Don't
Hmm.
expect,
Yeah.
him to jump on a dinosaur and say, I'm Batman.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and just as he goes to get breakfast, like just right off the bat, like the dialogue for me is so good. His, can they kill me before breakfast?
Yeah.
And this guy comes up, this huge guy. He's like, "You are in hell, little man, and I am the devil." And his response of, "You're not the devil, you're practice." Like
Yeah.
that is such a Batman line.
It is great.
Like
Yeah.
like it feels like it came out of a comic. Or
I
and maybe
want
I've
to. I
just
was just thinking that's got to be Goyer's influence right there.
yeah.
For
But it
sure.
and I don't know if it's because I've seen this movie so much, but it really feels like I've read it somewhere. Like I can't think
Hmm.
of it. I'm sure it's just from this, but it's just so pitch perfect. And so that leads to a fight, and we get to see the KC fighting method that they've kind of come up with
Hmm.
for this movie. And what did you think of this opener with this kind of like it's not a street brawl, but six or seven guys taking on Bruce Wayne with no gadgets. It's raining, it's
Well,
muddy.
yeah, it establishes that he's a badass already, by probably just his own training. We know he kicks it goes up several notches once he goes to the League of Shadows, but he can already kick some ass. And a lot of it's just and it's anger, a lot of it, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, I thought yeah, he mops the floor with them, not very well because it's very muddy. And I remember originally wishing or going, man, well, I wish I could have seen more of the fight, like the camera pulled back, but it ends up it was perfect. You know, the way they did that and everything else, the how quick it is, and I think they made well, I know they did made the right choice.
There's something that Nolan does in this movie that sets it apart from the prior four with the action. Like thinking back to like 89, like the Ace Chemical Factory, like you get these long lingering shots of Batman. You get really good looks at him as he,
Mm-hmm.
takes form. And especially when you get to the docks later, like
Yeah.
everything's quick cuts, not like Born Identity quick cuts, but it discombobulates you as a viewer and it
Mm-hmm.
puts you in the shoes of the people that are fighting
Yes.
Batman where they
Yeah.
don't know where
Yeah.
he's coming from. And part of me when it first came out really wanted to get that good look at this Batman because I
Well,
didn't feel
yeah,
like I'd seen it in a while.
it's because we
Um,
weren't used to something like this in these type of movies. They, sh- uh, if you will, they show too much. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Uh, Part of Nolan being a genius is he got that. I want this to come from Batman, or from the Batman kicking ass. I want it to come from who's getting their ass kicked point of view, and
yeah,
from the criminals. And I think this is a little hint of it here. He's not Batman yet, but it's just quickness and how fast and whatnot.
yeah, for sure. And another great line, as he gets dragged off, I
Yeah.
don't need protection. And he gets thrown in solitary where a man identifying as Ducard is waiting for him. So, speaking of him at this point as Ducard, because that's who he is for all intents
Mm-hmm.
and purposes,
Yeah.
what was your initial reaction to the casting and what was your familiarity?
Well, I gotta say this first. I did, I do love the line of not for them, protection for them, not for
Yeah,
you.
yeah, protection for
For
them.
protection.
Yeah,
I don't need protection.
yeah.
No, protection for them. And with the Ducard character, knew I knew of the character. I was familiar with the character. Wasn't an expert on the character or anything. Like
Hmm.
I knew the character existed in the Batman mythos. And of course, so that's how the movie was billed as far as the information they gave us that he was playing Ducard, and there were things written about that he was based on Henri Ducard, the Batman character who helped train Batman as a detective, actually. I think, right,
Yeah.
originally, yeah, not a fighter. And so yeah, I mean, it was just I plus it's Liam Neeson, so it was I thought it was a great casting
Yeah.
for for Descartes, even if he was just merely Descartes. See what I
His
did there?
facial hair and his look makes him look a lot like the comic book version. Just, a little bit of a longer mustache, maybe a little bit of a beard, but, coming from
Let me ask
him
you this real
playing,
quick. Let me
yeah,
interrupt you. When you saw it for the first time, Batman Begins, did you know did you know of the twist?
no,
Spoiler alert. Okay.
I did not know
Okay.
the twist.
Okay.
Yeah, thankfully I did not know about. Did you?
Yes.
Ah,
It's the only thing I've been spoiled for of the trilogy films is I knew when that script was leaked,
yeah.
I couldn't help myself. I read it. So I knew that. And I'm still kicking myself's ass today for doing that. And I do think I think that script was leaked on purpose. I still believe that.
Just kind of like the whole Deadpool
I think it was
test footage to get it.
I think it was to show fans, you know,
Yeah.
this is what we're doing to get them on board. I 100% believe that.
Yeah, with all the other, like we talked about in the last episode, like with all the other stuff that was going on and various iterations and all that, yeah,
Yeah,
I could see why they would do that if that's what happened.
yeah,
Um, Especially with Nolan not being quite Nolan yet in
yeah.
terms of his
That
industry
shit wouldn't
influence.
happen. It wouldn't happen
Yeah.
now on a Nolan film. Yeah.
So, but I thought, you know, going back to like 1999 with Star Wars Episode 1, where you had Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon Jinn as this um Jedi who was training young Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like there was a nice, you know, back and forth between, you know, that role and seeing him again as like a figure who, you know, instructs the hero. Like that
Mhm.
seemed like good casting at the time. And I mean, it's still good casting, but there's like an interesting correlation too with Batman 89 since Henri Ducard was created by Sam Hamm
Mhm.
for a story that was published in Detective Comics in the lead up to the 1989 movie. So
Okay.
it was kind of a cool little coincidence that the guy who created the last or wrote the first installment of the last iteration, like one of his
Yeah.
characters from the comics, has now made its jump to the big
Okay.
screen in this version.
Okay. See, I learned something new today. I did
There
not
you
know that
go.
Sam Hamm created that character. Okay.
Yeah, it was Detective 598 through 600.
I do remember this that there were a lot of
Blind
people
Justice. Yeah.
um, thought that the character's name was his first name, Ducard. You didn't know that?
Oh, I did not hear that. That's funny.
Merely Ducard. And they thought
Yeah.
he's merely, why didn't he use Henri, or he just call him Henry or whatever?
Yeah.
Who's merely? I was like, for real? Well, anyway, there you
And
go. What are you going to do?
his with his twin brother Simply.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So Ducard says he speaks, I don't even know how to say this. We'll go with the movie that he speaks for Ra's al Ghul.
Does, does
Where do
that,
you where
does
do you
that,
fall on the
you
pronunciation?
know what? I tell you why. When I was a kid reading those
Denny
Denny
O'Neil and
O'Neil with that character, Neil Adams on the art, I always in my head it was Ra's al Ghul.
yeah, same.
Always. And so I I don't know I don't know when I first heard it was Raish Al Ghul.
For me, it was the Batman the Animated Series episode, The Demon's
Okay.
Head, which
Okay.
was it was before this movie came out. So, you
It
know,
was, yeah.
early to mid
So
90s whenever it aired.
it
And
I
that's where I
didn't blink.
first heard Raish, and I was like, "What? Why did they change his name?" But then in the
Yeah.
credits, it was R.A. apostrophe S. I'm like, "Oh, I guess that's
And it,
how it's
and
pronounced."
I didn't blink and that's how I, to this day, if I read a comic book with that character in it, it's still Ra's al Ghul. And,
Okay.
you know, sorry, 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 purists, don't take my Batman card away.
And you know, Denny has pronounced it in interviews and stuff as Raish. So I got used to it like that. And then, you know, this movie comes out. I'm like, "Wait, what?" So then, you know, had to flip back and forth between the two. Uh and this is like where we get that line from the trailers, you know, but if you make yourself more than just a
Mm-hmm.
man, if you devote yourself to an ideal and if they can't stop you, then you become something else entirely. Legend, Mr. Wayne. What did you think of that?
I like I liked how Bruce Wayne before that when Ducard is describing the League of Shadows and he's like huh, vigilantes, and Ducard says basically what Bruce was describes him as what he was, at that time, just off the chain, no discipline,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, that's great dialogue right there. That whoever came up writing that, Jonathan Nolan or Goyer, make yourself more than just a man. You're a legend, and yeah, and it's not where it's too on the nose. You know what I mean? where you can,
Yeah.
Batman is a legend. It's a legendary character. So it's not like, oh, see what he did there. No, it's very organic. It's smooth. It fits
And
100%.
it serves like the story and the inspiration for what he
Yeah.
later does in the film. Like
Yeah.
it's such a great line. Um, and Ducard offers Bruce a challenge to pick a rare blue flower that grows on the eastern slopes when he's released, then deliver it to the top of the mountain, and he may find what he is looking for. So as Bruce gets dumped on the side of the road the next day, it's immediately clear that we're not on a Hollywood backlot.
Hmm.
What did you think of the scope that Nolan was delivering? And keep in mind, we're only at the first 7.5 minutes of the movie.
I remember them talking about they filmed, was it Iceland they filmed in or
Yeah,
Greenland? Iceland.
Iceland.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just the overhead, probably second unit, those aerial shots of the mountains during this sequence, kind of coming in and out is just, I mean, it's just like, wow, we hadn't seen this kind of scope, this kind of depth in a Batman movie before, you know?
Yeah.
And it was, I don't want to keep beating. I don't think they were trying to beat us over the head. This is different. This is not what you've seen. But so when I say this, it's just, it was different,
Yeah.
it was different. That's why this film is groundbreaking. It's different.
I mean, all hats off to Anton first,
Yeah.
from Batman 89, because he created such a fantastic world with like a beautiful visual design that the comics even adapted for a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, but this already hits so different because you don't feel cramped in. You're not seeing the same
Yeah. And
three buildings over and
yeah.
over.
And
Like it feels vast.
it feels real.
Yeah.
Does that makes, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It feels real. I think that's
Not,
what really,
yeah.
really, why one of the reasons why I love it is it's you could reach out and grab it. It felt real, and with the other four films, and there's two of them I love. It never felt real. Good,
Yeah.
love them, but it wasn't real. Didn't feel real. This one did.
And I wouldn't say that it made me hate the other movies by any
No, no, no,
stretch,
no, no.
but it did change how I felt about them for a brief moment because
Okay.
it was so not jarring, but it was so different, and
Mm-hmm.
that tactile sense you got of the world and how big of a stage we were playing on, it to for me it was almost like, it made it a little bit more like a Bond movie because we were going around the world and seeing these different locations,
Yeah.
and you just feel unencumbered. And not to say that, every Batman movie has to go around the world. Um, but it was nice to get something different and not just be stuck in Gotham City.
Yeah.
Because every now and then it's good to stretch your legs.
Yeah.
So, but before we continue, we're going to put a quick pause in the conversation to have a word from our sponsors. All right. So, Iceland transitions to Shepperton Studios for the interiors. Um, so there's a little CGI for Roz's
Mm-hmm.
monastery, but I mean, it sure fooled me 20 years
It's
ago.
seamless. I didn't.
Yeah,
No.
it wasn't
No.
until like the special features where they showed
Yeah.
the shot and then they fill in like the
Yeah.
CGI model, and I was like, oh wow, because everything we'd seen to that point just seemed like it was all real and
Yeah.
practical.
Yeah.
So I thought they found this location, this
Yeah.
monastery, and just
Yeah.
like, hey, do you mind if we film here? And
Sure.
but it was not, it was fake. Um, and it's here that we see Raz Al Ghul, played by Ken Watanabe. What did you think of the visual translation of the character? Did you like go full fanboy with an eye and
No.
say, race isn't bald?
No. No. Uh, I when it comes to characters like that, I am not a stickler for little interpretation and adaptation. It's kind of like we haven't had the comic book stereotypical Alfred ever
No, we
in a
haven't.
movie. The bald, pencil mustache, tall, thin, dark hair. So no, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, we haven't had the physical version, but I mean, we've had great Alfreds.
Yes,
But
yeah. I'm talking just
yeah, it's not
Gary
like
Oldman is Gary
ex
Oldman is straight
exactly what I
out of
was
the
gonna
comic
say.
book with Jim
Yeah,
Gordon. We haven't had a straight out of the comic book Alfred yet, and that's fine. I'm talking
yeah,
visually, aesthetically here, not the character. They've been hell. The Alfreds have been pretty great, and they've all embodied what Alfred is, in my opinion. And so the fact that they weren't balding with a pencil mustache and all that has never concerned me, and it didn't concern me with you know uh, Ken Watanabe,
yeah. Watanabe. Yeah,
Watanabe, Watanabe, Ken
for the
Wat.
brief
Yeah,
time that we get to see him.
yeah.
So, and again, just another perfect, line of dialogue. I seek the means to fight injustice, to
Mm-hmm.
turn fear against those who prey on the fearful. Like that's Batman, like right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I mean, hats off to whoever Goyer, like you said, or Nolan or the Nolans. Like it's just right to the point. We're firmly established. If you've never seen a Batman movie somehow, like you in the first 10 minutes, you immediately understand who this character is and
Mm-hmm.
what he's about at his core. Um, and then, Ducard with his Are You Ready to Begin, which is in
Mm-hmm.
like all the trailers. And
Yeah.
Ducard starts his attack to see what Bruce has got, and Ducard realizes that Bruce is afraid, but not of him.
Yeah.
And as Bruce passes out, we flash back to his childhood accident.
That is a great. I love that line of uh you are afraid, but not of me. You know?
Yeah.
It's just and it's true. He's not afraid. And it works in the whole, the bat thing and his parents being killed, all that, that's the stuff he's afraid of.
And so with Bruce passed out, we flash back once again to that childhood accident. We're just,
Mm-hmm.
a few minutes later from where we last left it. And Thomas Wayne rappels down to rescue Bruce, and he's got a broken bone. And as his dad carries him inside, Bruce hands Rachel the arrowhead that they were fighting about in the beginning of the movie. Um, and Thomas says, "Why do we fall, Bruce? So we can learn to pick ourselves up." Would you say that this is the theme of the movie, even more so than fear and turning it against someone?
Fear is certainly a theme of the film. But yes, that's what Batman Begins is all about, is Bruce literally pulling himself up by his bootstraps and making a huge change,
Yeah.
and becoming a different person than he was before. So yeah, absolutely.
And if you think about it, like this is, I mean, there's a reason why the movie starts with that scene is because him falling leads to his fear of bats, which leads to
Mm-hmm.
them leaving the theater, which leads to his parents getting murdered.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it all comes back to that. And this whole movie, this whole arc is about him learning to get back up on his feet.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, for me, that's why I wanted to call this chapter, Why Do We Fall, Bruce? Because it sums up
Yeah,
the whole movie for me.
there is a bit of it's a different. We just finished Batman Forever,
Yeah.
chapter by chapter, and there is a the reasoning behind Bruce's guilt is different in these two movies, but they're rooted in the same event.
Yeah.
right? Um, Batman Begins, it's Bruce wanting to leave because he's scared of the bats. And so they leave. Whereas in Forever, it's, he thought that it was him who made them go see Zorro, and that's why they were killed. So it's still the same thing, just different
Yeah.
ways of getting there.
Yeah. That connective tissue, that link exists between the two. Um, I think they're both equally valid ways
Yeah.
of telling the story.
Yeah.
So time passes as Bruce recuperates, and he wakes up from a nightmare, and his dad checks on him, asking if it's the bats again. He tries to soothe his son, letting him know that all creatures feel fear, and that the bats were just as afraid of him. I mean,
Mhm.
that's pretty important for what's to come, right?
Yes. It's very little, very subtle foreshadowing because,
And
yeah, that's the bats were afraid of him. He's become a bat to scare in reverse, the others. So it's some very
it's
clever dialogue and themes, and I don't mean this in the funny way when we say it, but it's all connected, what they're doing here.
yeah, from a narrative standpoint,
Yeah.
it gets paid off later. There's a reason why
Sure.
this
Yeah.
scene
Yes.
exists, and that's what's
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
whatever this is like what 216, 220 the runtime,
Yeah.
221, whatever it takes.
Hmm. Hmm.
And but not a second, not a minute is wasted
Yeah.
narratively. Like it all feeds into like a greater purpose.
Yes.
Um and that's the thing too about like this movie. Like and part of it's just getting older and your sensibilities change. Like when I was a kid, I wouldn't say hate is too strong of a word, but I really did not like the first half of Superman the movie because there's a good hour before you get to Superman. And as a
Yeah.
5-year-old, like I didn't want to see him being bullied in Smallville, or I didn't
Yeah.
care about the destruction of Krypton. Like I wanted to see the action bits.
Yeah.
And there was something different about like the 2002 Spider-Man where the first hour, it much like Superman 78, is getting to know Peter Parker
Hmm.
before we get to him as Spider-Man. But like that was a character I loved so much, and I didn't mind spending time with him as his civilian identity.
Hmm.
Um, and granted, the focus is more on Peter than the focus was on Clark in Superman. But as I got older, like I appreciated what Donner did and the epicness of the movie that he made. And I can appreciate its brilliance now. But at this point, I always kind of gravitated more towards the second movies because the heroes were created
Yeah.
and they were off and running, and it wasn't repeating the story I had already known so many, time and time again from rereading
Yeah.
comics. But like with Spider-Man 2002 and with this movie, um, because Batman 89, it was like started right off with Batman, which was like
Yeah. I
the
remember
great thing
reading
about
that
it.
Tim Burton wanted to get right to the chase,
Yeah.
and not do what they did with Superman the movie, whereas it was, took a while before we get to
Yeah.
Superman is introduced. Nolan was the opposite. Nolan was like he took a page right out of Donner and followed that blueprint.
But the way that they craft this intro and how
Hmm.
we're going back and forth in time
Yeah.
and seeing these
Well,
flashbacks, like
that's Nolan.
it
That's
it
very
makes
Nolan.
it yeah, but it makes it like an interesting narrative. And
Hmm.
again, maybe it's just my sensibilities, but like I love Batman so much. I don't mind getting to see this Bruce Wayne, even though I
Sure.
know
Yeah.
about the pearls and the movie
Yeah.
and all that. Like there's something fresh and unique that they brought to it. Or like I said, maybe it's just I got older and my patience was better because I'd already
Yeah.
seen other Batman movies and seen Batman. Like I
Yeah.
didn't mind that we're spending the time here.
Yeah.
Um, so as we end this chapter, we see Thomas show Bruce the pearls that he's going to give to Martha.
Hmm.
What did you feel seeing those, knowing what they represent?
At the time, I knew what it represented. It has after watching the entire trilogy as many times as I have, it even takes a different, even stronger meaning because they end up being the pearls that Selena has
Yeah.
in Dark Knight Rises, and I guess it's the thing that I've always had questions about when it comes to Batman Begins, and we've talked about this already because we don't see it again till the end, is the arrowhead.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, is there's got it's Nolan. There's more to the arrowhead being passed back and forth between Bruce and Rachel than just them being kids and finders keepers, my garden and all that.
Well, what's an arrow for? You know,
Yeah.
used as a weapon. It's used
Yeah.
to hunt. And he gives it to Rachel, who stays in Gotham and
Hmm.
joins the DA's office,
Yeah.
and she's hunting down criminals and putting them
Yeah.
away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then she later hands it to him right as he ascends as Batman. Like
Hmm.
she's passing
Yeah.
that mantle over to him.
Yeah. Yeah. And both at the times when they give it up, they don't know what's she doesn't know he's Batman. He doesn't know she's gonna go later up become you know, a DA, a crusading DA at that. So
Yeah.
yeah, we're getting deep in the weeds here. But I had to ask. I had to ask.
No, that's no, I hadn't really thought
I
about it.
wanted
And
others'
it does
interpretations of this.
symbolize something between the two and what their role is because she stays in
Yeah,
Gotham
yeah.
and he leaves.
Oh, she
So
points that out. Yeah, later.
yeah,
But we're getting
so
ahead of
it's
ourselves.
yeah. Anyways, um, we're 20 years past this movie, and do the pearls elicit an eye roll from you from a 2025 standpoint?
No, no, absolutely
Okay.
not. No, no. It's like I said, it's hard for me to separate their meaning when you have watched the trilogy as a whole as many
Yeah.
times as I have. But even seeing it the first time, I mean, yeah,
Nolan doesn't, to my recollection, doesn't focus on them like the beads falling
yeah,
as much as like Burton did or as Snyder does,
yeah.
you know, and especially with the slow-mo of Snyder that really like hits it
Hmm.
home. But I mean, it's an important iconography that he includes, and like you said, like
Hmm.
it does have its own payoff at the end, which gives it a new flavor to it than we have really seen in any other iteration.
Sure, sure.
So, huh. It and that's what I love about doing this series. Granted this is really episode one, but we've done a few movies by now
Hmm.
and just, picking apart 10 minutes and we've gone for almost an hour,
I'm
about 10
telling you,
minutes.
I'm
It's
serious when I say I've learned
yeah.
something. I learned things about Batman Forever that I hadn't thought before. And the Batman when I went through that. So yeah, you certainly learn things. You can learn things about a film you've seen. As I say, when I used to do that, when I did the introductions for Forever, is this is the show that we overanalyze, overthink, and overwatch. But we also a film that we've seen many, many times. But we also, sometimes you learn something new, and I'm sure we will as we continue.
Yeah.
Batman Begins chapter by chapter.
But we're going to close the book on this chapter, on chapter one. Where can people find you, Bill? What do you got in the
Well, yeah,
pipeline?
they're already here. So there you go. They're already here.
Don't forget the dashes,
Yeah.
the all important dashes. Obviously, I too am on Batman-on-film.com. Also on YouTube, Up to Speed with Wally West. And I have a podcast, the 007 Files. We just interviewed author Raymond Benson, who wrote the Bond novels of the late 90s, early 2000s. And he is back as of this week. It's May 29th as we record this. He's doing a Felix Leiter novel set in the original Fleming timeline just after Live and Let Die, so 1952. And it's being serialized digitally, and then when it's all said and done, they're going to publish it as a book in October. So
Okay.
I got
Cool.
to talk with him, and he's like Felix Leiter, the character. He's a fellow Texan. He even spent some time growing up in Austin, so we had a
Okay.
really good conversation and got to interview him about his time in bondage and his upcoming book. So if you like Bond, if you like period spy type novels, it's called A Hook in the Eye, and you can just go to Kindle or whatever and start reading it digitally. So
Let me ask. I'm gonna ask you one Bond question, and I'm not gonna. Then we'll leave. I'm not trying to continue on and on. I know Casino Royale is heavily influenced by Batman Begins.
yeah.
Do you consider it a Bond origin movie? As Batman
Yeah.
Begins is okay.
Oh yeah. I mean, it completely is Bond Begins.
Okay. So would you ever be interested in like a movie that takes us back before Bond when he's Bond, like a kid and all, and all that? Is there a
No.
story in that? Because I don't I think
There is,
yeah.
but not really one that I need to really see.
Okay. I'm just yeah. I would say that yeah. Casino Royale always took as Bond Begins. So
Yeah. There's they did two different series of novels, like a Young Bond series. There's 5 books, and then they did another 3 books with a different author, and they were all
yeah.
set in the Fleming timeline. So it's like early 30s or late 40s or late 30s.
Okay.
And then Dynamite did James Bond Origins comic, which takes place after the Young Bond novels at like the start of World War II, and
Okay.
how like I think he lied about his age to go and
Okay.
fight, and it was like
Interesting.
16, 17. So I think it works in literature. I don't necessarily need to. I think it'd be kind of weird to do a period James Bond and do like a
Yeah.
40s,
Okay. All right.
teenager. And because then you'd have to find the equivalent if you modernized it, and it
Yeah.
just wouldn't quite be the same.
Okay. Just
So.
asking. There you go.
Yeah. Well, that's going to do it for us this time. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll have announcer Rachel take us out.
You have been listening to Batman on Film Chapter by Chapter, a BatmanOnFilm.com podcast revisiting the cinematic adventures of the Dark Knight, scene by scene, chapter by chapter. Follow Jett on Twitter at Batman on Film. For BOF news only, follow at the Batman on Film on Twitter. To become a BOF patron, go to patreon.com/Batman on Film. To advertise on BOF, visit advertisecast.com/Batman on Film. For Jett and Team BOF, I'm announcer Rachel. Authoritative, definitive, the original. Batman on Film. Established in 1998.
Batman flying night sky. Jett had a dream, now we're flying high. Since 98, it's been online. All the Bat fans gather and shine. Dark nights and Gotham tales, rockets with stories and never fail. We love the Bat, right from the start. Batman on film, straight to our heart. Jett's on the mission, spreading the word. Every bat flick, every unheard. Classic tales and brand new Batman movies bring shades of blue. From the Joker's laugh to the hero's call, Batman time, standing tall. We love the Bat, right from the start. Batman on film, straight to our heart. cheer. Since 98, we feel the thrill, keeping the bat vibes alive still. We love the night, right from the start. Batman on film, straight to our heart.